favorite movie
They've acted in.
that I've acted in. That's a tricky, because if you just took the first half of the question, what's your favorite movie, I would have a slick answer for that. The next one. But if you actually say that you acted in, that implies the past. Oh dear me. Truth of the matter is, there are little performances that you give that nobody ever sees, and you think, I did a good job of that. I did a little film called Britannic many years ago. Britannic was the sister ship of the Titanic, and she either hit a mine or was torpedoed, I think in about 1915 in the Aegean. She was being used as a hospital ship, and we do hope that she wasn't carrying arms and ammunition, because then it would have made her a legitimate target. But the British claimed that she wasn't, and I think she probably wasn't. But anyway, the captain got it right, and he managed to get all his crew off, all the passengers, all the soldiers who were injured off, with the exception, I think, of one boat that capsized when they were loading down the water, and I think they lost some people there. But it was just it was just a sweet story that hadn't been told before, and you hadn't heard before. And I rather like that one. A number of little ones, you know the big ones, and they're all pretty evident, aren't they, really? Anyway, will that do?
Yeah.
Good. Right, this is it. Look, he's got another microphone there. Cunning devil. He's jumping ahead of the line. Go on.
Arukazan, my friend.
Yes.
Sorry, it's an old dwarven saying.
Oh, well, we dwarves do. I think the only thing I can say back to you is, Ish kakui, I do. If you have a question.
Oh yes, of course, I do have a question, my friend. It is well known and all that you were the dwarf, Gimli, son of Glorin, in the Modern Rings. However, sources where you look up, it turns out you were also Treebeard, one who tends to the trees, are you not?
Well, one can have a double life. Actors always do. Yes, I have indeed. I was indeed fortunate enough to do two parts in that marvelous trilogy. But you didn't see much of the real me as a tree.
You were just merely the voice of a tree, but how is it to work behind the mic, not on the set, but to be the voice of a character?
Well, it's always a challenge to try and make a character work just in terms of a voice. And actually, that challenge was a very hard one. I lost more sleep over Treebeard than I had almost anything else. Because think about it. How do you copy a tree? More than that, how does a tree speak? A tree doesn't breathe in the way that we do. It has no lungs. So how would it speak? Added to which, if you think about Treebeard, he's a very old ent. He's the oldest living thing in the world. And of course, in the book, they are very, very slow. And you've lost the audience. You can't take that amount of time. So you've got to suggest age and slowness, and you've got to suggest the gentleness of the creature. That sense that, I love it when the little birdies come and sit on my branches, and the mice run through my toes and they tickle so, and yet you want the tremendous anger, you know, when the Ents go to war, and the great power. And I tried so many different things, and I wanted to try and get a voice that sounded as if it was the whisper of wind through leaves and the rubbing of a branch against another. And then, you know, you wanted that sort of slight suction as the roots came out of the soil, as the ant moves. And we tried so many different things. We tried sort of reducing the sound so it became basically a wail, you know, sort of a very low sound. We tried all sorts of things, and in the end we went back to just something quite simple. I had the pleasure of going on a chat show in New York, a radio show. A man called Bob Hieronymus, bright fellow, and so I said to him, because he was quite a Tolkien expert himself, and I said to him, so Bob, what I want is for you to tell me how to do this. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, I've got 3 friends of mine who are absolute Tolkien experts. You know, they teach at university now. And everyone came back with a different suggestion. The one that I took most to heart was, there is only one actor in the world who can pull this off. James Earl Jones. I have to say that I think James could have done it. Of all the parts that I played, I think Treebeard is the one that I am least satisfied with. I didn't get it right. I don't know how you can get it right. But it's just one of those things. Some of those, a challenge like that is almost impossible, I think. But perhaps James Earl Jones could have done it better. Anyway, and I wouldn't mind listening to him try either. All right, will that do? Next question.
Okay, it's been recently announced that you're joining the cast of Once Upon a Time in this next season. Can you tell us a little bit about your character and maybe which actor or actress you're really excited to work with?
I'm not allowed to say too much about it. All I can say is we did it in a studio here in Tampa last week. And it's lovely. The scripts are so well written, and you know, they put up a visual thing for you to see, because you know the real live characters are real human beings. The acting is extraordinary. You see, you do those things, and you don't necessarily get round to seeing them until your daughter catches you and says, oh, you're on the television, Daddy, come out and look, or something like that. But I think this looks so good that, I would definitely, I'll start watching the series, because I hadn't heard anything about the series, you know. It's just a job that comes along, you read, you think, oh, that's fun, let's try and do that. But I hadn't realized that it has a sort of a worldwide and appreciative audience, and I'm glad. Anything that makes people, children happy is such a good thing to do. So yes, I'm delighted to do it. I know that isn't really the answer to your question, but you know, they would probably abduct me and beat me, and attach one of my legs to a block of stone and sink me in the canal. As much as I love you, I can't go there. Right.
Hello and welcome to Tampa. We're glad to have you. My question goes back to when I was a kid, which is a while ago. And I remember you as Sala from Indiana Jones. Reminisce a little bit about the making of that series, because you loved your character in it.
Well, you're very kind, thank you. Yes, Salah he's a great character. There are some parts that are just well written, and there are parts that just allow an actor to fill it out. And I used to say I always look forward to actor-proof parts that are so well written that even I can't screw them on. And Salah was sort of one of those. Steven Spielberg sent me an invitation to come and see him about this film, and he'd seen Chopin, and he loved the character that I played in Chopin, a character called Rhys-Davies, and so I went and saw it, and I read the script, and I went and saw it, and I said, now listen, do you really want me to play a 5'2" skinny Egyptian? He said, oh, don't worry about that. What I want is the character you played in Chopin crossed with Falstaff. Can you do something like that? And I said, well, I'd give it a try, couldn't I? Yeah, absolutely. And my agent, who had sent me the script, said, do you want to do this? Well, Spielberg had just come from 1941, which we now recognize as being a marvelous film. But it had been a box office failure, and suddenly, all those critics were saying, perhaps the Golden Boy has come to the end of his lucky run. Maybe he hasn't got a future after all. I read the script, and I called my agent up, and I said, look, this is the most extraordinary thing. There's hardly any dialogue. It's all descriptions about what's happened. He said, well, you don't have to do it, And I said, of course I'm going to do it. I want to work with Spielberg anyway. But I said, the odd thing about this is going to be, this can only be one of two things. It could be an absolute disaster, or it could set a new fashion in film. It just, it's one of those odd things that comes up, and most often they're disasters. But of course, when you've got a genius like Spielberg directing and writing, and that great cast, what a lovely cast that was. Lovely Ronnie Lacey, who was you remember he was the nasty Nazi who picks up the little the headpiece. And it burns into his hand. Ronnie was a lovely fellow. He found work as actors extremely hard to come by, and he finally decided he was going to give up. He was no longer going to be an actor. He was going to be an agent, because at least you got some money being an agent. So he called up all his old friends and said, look, I'm going to become an agent. I want to represent you. I'll do a great job because I'm one of us, and you can count on me to work hard for you. So all his friends said, oh, all right, will you be our agent? So he set up an agency, and 3 months later he got that part in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He did lose a few friends after that, but he was an immense prankster. We were getting on a plane, I think, as we were leaving Tunisia, and he was up ahead of me, and he walked up the steps of the plane, and they turned and went. So I thought, and he said, so I turned and went. And I went back to him like that, and he was going. He got me a trolley once on another plane flight that we were on. I had a lot of baggage. I'd just come back from Africa, and I had been living in Africa. I did 4 films back to back, and we suddenly bumped into each other. I had a lot of baggage, and he got me a trolley, and I loaded it all on. I said, Ronnie, that's really kind of you. And he said, anything for you, dear boy, anything for you. And as I pushed the trolley, one of the wheels just sort of locked up, and I went round in a complete circle. Lovely man. Alas, he died of cancer about 8 years after we'd done the film. But not before we did another film with Connery, actually. Ronnie was very happy about that one too, because he was 8 years older than me, and he was playing my son, so he was really delighted. Paul Freeman, that extraordinarily handsome French archaeologist, Belloc. What a gift, that's a perfect performance. And that moment when the fly goes into his mouth, that was happening all the time, alas, when we were filming in the True Sahara. Oh, it was pretty ghastly place. Fabulous Karen. Just one of those lovely golden souls that you meet, who just, it's just the oxygen of life. Young Harris, knowing that this was his chance, to break out of the Han Solo thing and be the younger leading man or the leading man of his generation, which he actually became, I think. Wonderfully tough, aggressive, intelligent, a remarkable young actor then, and he's got better and better as he gets older, I think. Gosh, there was a big Pat Roach, the big wrestler who fights with him. Marvelous chap, he died. He died a few years ago. The guy who's on the poster with the scimitar, the guy with the big scimitar whom Indy shoots. That was originally written as a scene with the bullwhip against the scimitar. And the stunt guy who did it, he had practiced for about 3 months to get this right. Anyway, we all had a bit of, well, we had acute dysentery actually. And this particular day, Harrison had got it, but I think he managed to get some antibiotics in pretty early on. So he turns up, and he turns up and goes, "Stephen, how long is this going to take?" Stephen said, "Well, it's about 3 days." He said, "You've got me for an hour." He said, "A damn stupid scene anyway." He actually uses a different word. He'd take his gun out and shoot him. Stephen said, "Show me," and roll, and cut. And 3 pages, 3 days' work went out of the film. And it's one of the best gags in the film. I think the film has just been voted the most watched movie in Britain. The average Briton seems to watch the film 27 times or something like that. And it holds up, it endures, and it is. There is a very deliberate spontaneity about the film. When Stephen got us together, first of all, he said, "Right, now listen, I want to make something clear. We're going to shoot this film very fast, partly because it's my friend's money, partly because I've got in the habit of going to 60, 70, 80 takes. And when I say print 84, people say, well, what's the difference between that and number 3? And I can see the difference, but clearly they can't. So what we're going to do, we're going to print first and second takes as much as we can. And what I'm hoping is there is going to be a freshness and an immediacy, like a painter splashing the paint on the canvas and working it very quickly. And I think there is that measure of spontaneity that bubbles through the film. I love those tiny details. The girl in his class who just distracts him for a moment, and she closes her eyes so that you can see on her lips, "Loving you." The guy